Hello and welcome to the latest episode 153 of the Podiatry Business Podcast with myself, Lorcan O'Donaile, podiatrist, health business mentor and owner of podiatrypatientsontap.com. So the last two podcasts, what I've done is I've gone through the proper strategy you should have for your podiatry marketing clinic and then how you implement it. And what I want to do is I want to talk about the concept of how important numbers are. Now, in the previous podcast, what I've spoken about is the 5 times multiplier, and they are the 5 major levers that you have to pull inside in your clinic. They are number of leads, conversion percentage, they are average transaction value, they are the number of transactions per patient, and then profit percentage versus costs. If you were to go back and listen to that podcast, you're going to be talking about how if you were to improve each of those by even 10%, it doesn't have a 50% improvement in your profits. It has a 200, 300, 400% improvement in your profits. So numbers is hugely important. And what I want to talk about in this podcast is I want to talk about the 3 crucial numbers that every podiatry clinic owner must track for their marketing and to make sure that it's working as well as we can. Now, if you're listening to this on a podcast, listen to just audio, then I would suggest that you go and look at our YouTube channel, because I'm going to share a screen and I'm going to write some of these details down as we do so. So the first one that I would suggest is your patient acquisition cost. So your PAC. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you have, let me tell you a story about a client, okay? If you have a client who comes along, or if you have a clinic, obviously you have, and you're listening to this, you're trying to attract certain patients. And not every single patient or patient type or treatment type is equal. So if, for example, you come to my clinic, I know that if I have a plantar fascia patient, a chronic plantar fasciitis patient, that patient's value is 3 to 4 times more than a chiropody patient. So corns, callus, routine stuff over, say, a 2-year period. And I know that because I've measured the numbers, and I'm going to go through, show you how to do that now in a moment. So if it was to cost me €100 or £100 or whatever to get a plantar fascia patient, and it would also cost me £100 or €100 to get a chiropody patient, and I was able to get both equally, but I only had a certain budget, well, then it makes more sense to go after the plantar fascia patient who's going to give me 3 and 4 and 5 times more return. So that you need to know how much is it actually going to cost you to actually get a patient in the door. That way you're then able to make a decision, well, am I willing to spend that money to get that patient? Is there enough left at the end? Now, it's difficult to do that until you actually start running your marketing. So ideally what you want to be doing is you want to be looking at 3 things in this. And the first one is you want to be looking at the cost per lead. So how much is it to get a lead per marketing channel, for each marketing channel? So what I mean by that is, if you're running Google, it's not enough to say how much is it to get a Google lead, but how much is it to get a Google plantar fascia lead? How much is it to get a ingrown toenail lead? How much is it to get an orthotic lead? Now, if you're marketing at the moment, you're doing Google and you don't know this, well, then it's not really set up correctly. And that comes back to what we talked about in the last podcasts. And this is something we make sure our clients do. You need to know each marketing channel, exactly what's happening inside in each, and they need to be subdivided, not just one big lump of one. Because otherwise you can't actually figure out how much are you spending to get that lead, a plantar fascia patient, a chiropody patient, etc., etc. The second part of that then is you need to know what is your total marketing spend, okay, divided by, okay, the number of new patients that you got, okay, and that is for each channel that you do. And what you want to make sure that you're doing is you're tracking each individual condition separately, so that you have a very accurate idea of what's working, what's not working. Now, this might sound like it's quite difficult to do, but it's not that difficult to do. So what we would have our clients do, and what we help them to do, is we have an Excel spreadsheet, and each particular ad campaign within each type of media, so Google, each particular campaign, your plantar fascia, your chiropody, etc., we would want to know how many leads did you get, how many of those converted into a patient, okay, and how much do they actually end up spending. So what we want to be looking at is we want to be looking at what is the cost per lead for each particular type of marketing channel. We want to know what is the total marketing spend in that campaign divided by the number of new patients, and we want to be able to track that per condition. And what that will allow you to do is it allows you to see how much am I actually spending in my marketing to acquire a patient. So if I spend $1,000 and I get 100 leads, then I know that I'm spending a tenner a lead to get a lead. But if I'm only getting 10 patients out of those 100 leads, well, then I know I'm spending $100 to get a patient. And if you're making a return of $1,000 or $3,000, well, then you're quite happy to pay that $100. But if you're only getting a return of 120 or 150, well, then you're probably not going to want to spend that $100 getting that patient. And the reason is because it isn't just I take in $100 or spend $100 and I make $150, because there's also other costs that we talk about. You need to have running your clinic, etc., etc. So that's the first thing, or patient acquisition cost. The second thing that you need to know, the second number that you really need to track, is you need to track your patient lifetime value. Now, the reason you need to know this, why does this matter, is because if you don't know how much a patient is going to be worth for you, how can you figure out whether it's worth actually chasing that person or not? So it's not that difficult to figure this out. Ideally, what you're looking at is you're looking at the average revenue per patient over a plan of care. And you ideally want to do this per condition. Now, if you have never done this before, it's perfectly okay to start with just a generic across the board, mixing all the conditions together of your patients. So you want to know the average revenue per patient over treatment plan, you want to know the frequency of visits, and you want to know anything else that they might have purchased. So how do you actually do this? So this is where people get a bit confused. They go, well, how am I supposed to know over their lifetime? And when we say lifetime, we don't really mean that you have to look at them over 20 years or 30 years. You know, that'd be great if you can, but it's just not that practical to do so. So what I would recommend you do is you go over a 2-year span. So you go back over the previous 2 years. So I'm recording this in February 2025. So I would recommend that you go back to January 2023 and you look at the first 20 new patients that came into your clinic. And what you do is you have a look and see how much have they spent over that next 2-year period. So you then get an average of that, and that is the lifetime value. So lifetime value is average transaction value, how much did they actually spend per transaction, multiplied by the average number of transactions, or you could say appointments. Now, if I go to my system, my CRM, and I use Clinico, it gives me those numbers. I don't have to even think about it. But it doesn't do it on a condition specific. If I want to do it on a condition specific, I have to get my admin team to manually do it, as I just described. But there's no reason you can't do this today. You can't do it, and it'll take you 5 minutes to do it. If you're using an electronic system, it usually has these stats to spit out. And what that then does is it allows you to know, okay, well, the average value of a new patient is X. So if I spend, so imagine it's $300 for a new patient. You'd be quite comfortable spending $20 to get that patient. You'd probably even be comfortable spending $50, maybe $70, maybe even $100. Maybe would you be comfortable at $200? Maybe not quite so. You certainly wouldn't be comfortable spending $300 or more, because you're now running into a loss. And the issue is that I see with a lot of clinic owners that come to me is they have no idea. They have no idea. They're spending money on marketing, but they have no idea actually how much is it going to cost me to get a patient. and then how much is that patient actually going to be worth. And if you don't know these numbers, you can't keep your marketing accountable, pretty much. Now, the other component of this that you can add in is the referral value from existing patients. So if I was to get 10 new patients and for $1,000, okay, and I was to get a $1,000 spend per each, then I've got a $10,000 return on $1,000. But if 1 in 3 of those patients was to refer in another patient, that's an additional 3 patients, which brings it to $13,000. So what I'm finding is I'm spending $1,000 on my marketing, but I'm getting 10 new patients, plus they're referring word of mouth another 3 patients, which gives me $13,000. And you'd be quite happy to continue to spend. And in fact, you'd probably say, let's turn up that marketing ad there. That campaign's working really well and I'm getting great return on it. Now, how you measure referral from existing patients is a different system. It's a referral reward system, which I'm not going to get into here. But this kind of shows you how you start to think, well, I need to know, the second thing I need to know was the patient lifetime value. So what we've had so far is we've had patient acquisition cost. How much is it going to cost me to get a patient? How much is a patient worth? What's the patient lifetime value? The third number that you must know, and that we tend to not know because it's too difficult to figure out in a lot of cases, is you must know your conversion rate. Your conversion rates. Now, there are a few conversion rates you must consider. You must consider your leads to an appointment, so initial appointment rate. What's the percentage of that? So if you get 100 leads, how many of them actually become a patient and come in for one appointment, that first appointment? Then you need to have your initial consult to a plan of care or ongoing rate. And this second one here is determined primarily by the clinician in the clinic. The first one is primarily down to what the admin team do with the leads that you get them. Second one is primarily down to the clinician in the clinic. The admin team do have a role here. The third thing you need to be looking at with conversion is, what is my treatment plan completion rate? So if I have 100 people enter a plan of care, how many of them actually get to the end of the plan of care and are discharged by us as opposed to self-discharge? And I remember the first time I ever came across this, and I actually went and measured it. I had 2 physiotherapists who were working for me, and we went and we met. I had an inkling that they were not very good at getting people to commit to the plan of care, the way they were doing things. So I actually went and I measured it. I had my team measure, I think it was 100 patients each. And what we found is close to 60% of patients were self-discharging before the physio had told them that they were better and that they were completely fixed. And when I presented that to the physios, it was quite a shock for them and for me. But we worked on it and we improved it. But if we didn't know, we weren't going to make any changes to that. So then the fourth one is, what are my patient retention, which kind of leads into the last one, stroke reactivation rates. So how often am I managing to get a patient to come back who I've fixed? So they might come in with an initial issue. I've solved that. How can I get them through? How can I reactivate that patient? What's the percentage that are coming back maybe in a year, 2 years, etc. from that? Now, when you do this, there are 2 areas that you need to focus on, or 2 areas of your staff that you need to focus on. And the first is your admin team. So your admin team, the conversion that you need to focus on with them is in 2 places. One is leads, okay, to initial appointment. Obviously, because they're, in an ideal world, they're the ones that are following up your leads. They're using our system to converse with the patient and encourage them to come in. And it's up to them. And we've seen clinics where we've had admin team come along and they're just amazing straight off the bat. They're looking at 40%, 50% conversion rates immediately. And then we've had other admin teams, even currently right now, where they have a 4%, a 3% conversion rate. And that makes a massive difference. If you have a 3% conversion rate versus a 40% conversion rate, you're a lot more profitable business without any more wages, etc. So the admin team is hugely important. So we're looking at the leads to initial appointment. And then also, they do have a role in the ability to convert at the front desk. So if a patient comes in, sees the clinician, and the clinician recommends X, and they walk out to the front desk, the patient walks out to the front desk, and then they don't book in because the admin team don't do a proper job, well then that's not going to help you and your business really, is it? You've only got one appointment out of that patient. So that's the first section. What we want to be doing is we want to focus on the admin team. But equally, we want to focus on the clinical team. Okay, and where we want to focus on the clinical team is ability to rebook from the first appointment to a second appointment as a minimum. But also we want to see how do we get patients to commit to a plan of care. How good are they at getting that patient to come back in and have ongoing treatment? Because in reality, what we're not talking about here is giving people treatments that they don't need. What we are talking about is getting patients to complete a plan of care. Because in reality, if your staff are discharging a patient with chronic problems after 1 or 2 appointments, something's not right. They're either amazing, they're Harry Potter, or they're just not actually comprehensive enough with the treatment plans. And that's not good for you, it's not good for your business. Not only is it not good financially, but it's going to end up with a bad name because people are going to go around town saying, I went to this clinic, I spent this much money, 2 or 3 appointments, and I didn't get better. Don't go to them. So I'll just tell you how important this is. I have 2 clients at the moment that I'm thinking of, and in one particular case, they have a number of clinics, and we were doing Google Ads to make the phone ring. So you can do Google Ads to make the phone ring as opposed to get leads. And they asked us to turn them off because their front desk didn't tend to answer the phone very well. And I asked, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, quite often what they'll do is they'll pick it up and they'll just put it back down again. So there's no point in doing marketing if the conversion percentage at the front desk wasn't good enough. And it wasn't good enough because they weren't even answering the phone. And then we have another who was really good at admin, had a great admin team, but their clinical team was not getting patients to rebook any appointments at all. So again, that's not what we want to see. We want to see a team that it's consistently good throughout all conversions. So what this does, if you start to measure these numbers, what this does is it basically helps you align with my core marketing principles, which every clinic should have when it's doing its marketing. And that is that, 1, every cent matters. So every penny you spend on marketing should be earning its keep. You should be able to measure it, and it should be earning its keep. If you can't measure it, and if it's not earning its keep, it shouldn't be spent. Because you're not a big business like Coca-Cola, Budweiser, etc. You can't afford to be doing that. 2, you should be trying and aiming for ROIs of between 400 and in fact up to 1400%. 400 is where I'd like to see you as a minimum, but you should be getting greater. Now, when you're measuring your ROI, it does not have to be 100% accurate to measure it. So if you're doing your lifetime value, etc., if you're getting worried about that, that's okay. If you're 90 to 95% accurate on your ROI measurement, it's better than not measuring at all, and it gives you a very solid indication that this ad is working or not, or these campaigns are working. And then thirdly, what you want to make sure you're doing with all of your marketing is you're testing, you're measuring, and then based on the results, you're changing and testing again, and you're simply repeating. It's a loop that you do over and over again. So I hope this helps. I hope you can see now what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to show you that you've got to have your strategy correct for your marketing. You've got to set it up correctly. You've got to have all of these systems working in the background. And then you've got to be able to measure the numbers. But you've got to know what numbers you're looking to measure and how to do so. And we help our clients to do all of this. We try and make it as easy as possible. And in most cases, it's pre-automated for them at a click of a button. And what it does is it gives you reassurance that you're able to scale your business, scale your marketing without wasting money. So if up until now you haven't been measuring your marketing, you're not looking at your numbers, start now. Start with your patient acquisition costs, start looking at your patient lifetime value, and finally start to look at the conversion percentages within your clinic of your admin team and of your clinical team. It will help your business and it will start to make things a lot clearer for you. So if you want any help with something like this, if you think that maybe you want to talk to us here at Podiatry Patients on Tap about helping your podiatry clinic with your marketing, then simply go to podiatrypatientsontap.com, fill in the form for a quick 5-minute phone call, and we'll have a quick chat to see if we think we can help you, and we'd love to talk to you soon. So until next time, this is Lorcan O'Donaile signing out.